Core Compulsory 509. The name of this paper is Introduction to American Literature. See, this is very important that apart from British literature, Indian English, you are going to learn American literature, and in this paper, you will learn first of all background of American literature. In other words, we can say that you will learn history of English literature first of all, and after that, you will learn something about the authors, something about the important works of American literature, something about the poems, and something about the novel and drama. So, once again, the name of this paper, the title of the paper is Introduction to American Literature. You know, the title itself suggests that this is just introduction to American literature. You are not going to learn thoroughly about the history of American literature and various works of literature, but yes, you will find a brief introduction of history of American literature, and after that, you will study in detail the important works of American authors. So, in your syllabus, you have total 4 units. In the first unit, you have Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. This is very beautiful drama and a very important one. Um, we can say that this is very important work of Arthur Miller in American literature. Okay, then the second unit is devoted to 5 poems written by various poets. Walt Whitman, then you have Robert Frost, then Emily Dickinson, then Sylvia Plath, and Wallace Stevens. Okay, I'll explain in detail. Actually, I'll give you introduction to these poets and poems, and also about Arthur Miller, then also about the Ernest Hemingway. Okay, later. But first of all, you just go through these units. So, in the second unit, you have Walt Whitman's poem "Oh Captain, My Captain." Then the second poem is Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. The third poem is Emily Dickinson's Because I Could Not Stop for Death. The another poem is Daddy, written by Sylvia Plath, and The Emperor of Ice Cream by Wallace Stevens. The third unit deals with Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms. A Farewell to Arms is a novel, rather you can say it is a novella, and it is very good story which deals with tragedy of the protagonist. So, in other words, you can say that this is a tragedy, but this is novel. This is not drama. In the fourth unit, you will have acquaintances. Now, in acquaintances, you have various works of American literature. The first one is The Scarlet Letter, Moby Dick, The Sound and the Fury, and The Light in August, The Old Man and the Sea, The Green Gatsby, The Grapes of Wrath, The Good Earth, Desire Under the Arms, The Glass Menagerie, A Street Named Desire, All My Sons, The Zoo Story, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Man Without Woman, Man Who Had All the Luck, then Her Joke, Walden, The American Scholar, Leaves of Grass. So these are important works of American literature. Okay, Uh, Now let's discuss in detail. See, first of all, I would like to talk about the first unit, and that is Arthur Miller's play, Death of a Salesman. Uh, See, Arthur Miller was born in 1915 and died in 2005. He was one of great American playwrights, and he wrote many plays. About 27 plays he wrote during his lifetime, and this work, Death of a Salesman, is very important work of Arthur Miller. Uh, he began as a playwright. I mean to say that he was writing dramas and plays when he was at University of Michigan. Uh, in 1949, he wrote Death of a Salesman, and this book gave him Pulitzer Prize. Death of a Salesman is uh, a tragedy about differences between the Lowman family. Here, Lowman is a surname of family, Lomn. So, Lowman's family's dreams and the reality of their lives. So, we'll find the difference between American dream and the reality of the life. And the story is a tragedy because it has a tragic end. This is very beautiful play. The play is, we can say, scathing criticism of the American dream, and it is also criticism of the competitive, materialistic American society of the late 1940s. Death of a Salesman uh, has a setting of the time of 1940s. So we can find a realistic picture of American society during this time. What was the uh, the story of a layman, or you can say American common man during those days? So Arthur Miller here in this play gives us a realistic picture of American society during 1940s. Storyline features Willie Loman. I mean to say Willie Loman, Willy, Willie is the first name, and Loman, Loman, is the surname. So Willie Loman is the protagonist of this play. So this story talks about Willie Loman. He is an average guy. He's a common man, common American man. You can say common American who attempts to hide his limitations and failures behind increasingly delusions, or you can say hallucinations, as he strives to be successful. He wants to become a successful salesman. He's a, uh, you can say, not very successful salesman, but he's ordinary salesman and working for many years uh, as a salesman. So he wants to become a successful salesman, and he wants to get the success out of this job. He wants to become a millionaire from his work. But these are just dreams of Willie Loman, you know, because we have big dreams, but the reality is somewhat different, you know. man proposes and God proposes. So here, this man is uh, conservative. He is also not successful, but at the same time, he cannot give up this very idea that because of his limitations, physical limitations, because he is uh, 60, above 60, uh, and now he cannot work hard because the job of salesman is very tough, and it demands traveling and you know a lot of work. But this old man doesn't accept this reality. He is not ready to accept this reality that he's old man and he has uh, certain limitations, physical limitations, and many other things. So he wants to become a millionaire, and reality is different from his dreams. So this mind setup of Willy Loman leads him towards delusions and hallucinations. Okay, now the idea for this play first manifested itself as a short story, uh, because here Arthur Miller initially, stated that he first of all wrote short story, and after that he gave up the idea of this short story, and then he started uh, writing a play, a drama, with the use of this storyline. So the dreams of Willy Loman uh, give him pain, struggle, because he starts to expect more from his life, which is very difficult for him in reality to achieve many things, many things which he is dreaming. So as a result, he becomes, uh, a, a madman, insane, you can say, and he is suffering from psychological pain and disease, psychological disease that uh, he sometimes, um, you know, he sometimes having daydreams. He is talking with his dead brother Ben, and due to such delusions, due to such psychic problems, at the end of the play, he commits suicide. And this play has a tragic end. So this is American tragedy, and it is about uh, American dream. However, he has beautiful wife Linda. She is not a man of imagination, but certainly she believes in reality. So she is very strong lady, and somehow she manages to uh, to handle the family. She knows everything. She knows about Willy Loman's dreams, Willy Loman's physical problems, and his expectations. One thing is clear, that more you expect, more you suffer. You know. So this is the moral of this story. Okay, this is just a brief introduction of this play, Death of a Salesman. Now let me tell you another important point about this play, and that is that when you read this play, you must read this play thoroughly, This is my suggestion. When you read this play, you won't find the fact that which products Willy Loman are selling. He is a salesman and he must have some products, okay? And he has to sell those products. He has to do marketing about the products. But Arthur Miller, the writer of the play, doesn't mention that what kind of product Willy Loman is selling. Okay, so this is a very important point. Okay, second important point about this play is that this play, when it was published in 1949, the play became very popular, and not only that, but because of this play, Arthur Miller uh, won the Pulitzer Prize in the same year in 1949. Apart from Death of a Salesman, his other master works, or you can say uh, magnum opus, and that is another play titled All My Sons. Okay, All My Sons. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about the first unit. Okay, now let's move towards the second unit. See, in the second unit, there are selected poems, and you are going to read 5 poems. Okay, so first one is Walt Whitman's "O Captain, My Captain." Another literary figure in American literature, Walt Whitman. See, people say, and there is no doubt to say, that Walt Whitman was a walking, talking, poetic encyclopedia. In his first collection of poems, Leaves of Grass, this is the title of his first collection of poems, Leaves of Grass, Leaves, Leaves of Grass, Leaves of Grass. Here, leaves means the plural form of leaf, pandadu. Okay, so Leaves of Grass. And this collection was published in 1855. Walt Whitman wrote about so many different things, um, about love, sex, politics, uh, nature, travel. Okay, so we have such vivid themes, or you can say such very um, various themes of his poetry. His poems are simple and beautiful to read, and you can understand his poems in a simple way, because you know um, he has used a simple language and simple imagination. So his poems are not complex. You cannot say that his poems are complex, because easy to understand. See, he then continuously revised, edited, and added to this collection, Leaves of Grass, until the early 1890s. Okay, so first he published this collection. After that, he went on revising the same collection. He, edited some more poems. Okay, uh, more poems to this collection. So he did this till early 1890s. Walt Whitman was worshipper. Yes, it is. Uh, you can say that he is a worshipper of Abraham Lincoln, because this poem is based on the death of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, the uh, former president of the USA, he was assassinated on the 14th April 1865. Okay, 1865. He was uh, murdered. He was assassinated by one actor, and this tragedy happened just during the Civil War. And the Civil War occurred 1860 to 1865, 1861 to 1865. And the death of Abraham Lincoln was the end of Civil War. I will give you a detailed outline of history of American literature about Civil War. Okay, but today we are just having a bird view of your syllabus 509, paper 509. Okay, so this is about the tragedy, uh, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and the death of Abraham Lincoln. And here the speaker of the poem, the poet himself, mourns over the death of his father. He calls him as his father, his God. And this is very beautiful poem. The second poem is The Road Not Taken, written by Robert Frost. Robert Frost is a literary figure of American literature who achieved fame during his lifetime, and till now he is remembered for his poems. This particular poem, um, was composed and published in 1916. Actually, this poem was included in the collection of Robert Frost, and the title of the collection of his poems is Mountain Interval. Actually, he published many other poetry collections, and this collection is one of them, Mountain Interval. And we find this beautiful poem, The Road Not Taken. This is very philosophical one also. This poem we can find in his collection, Mountain Interval. This poem is one of the very popular poems of Frost, and this poem consists of four stanzas of 5 lines each. Okay, and we can have a philosophy of life in this poem. The third poem is Emily Dickinson's Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Emily Dickinson, another great poet of America. See, this poem deals with the philosophy of Emily Dickinson. Um, Let me tell you something more about Emily Dickinson. See, Emily Dickinson wrote many poems, but she um, did not publish her poems during her lifetime because she she used to remain her room. She didn't have many friends, and she had secluded life. Means she liked to remain lonely in her room. And during this time, she wrote many poems. Um but she was suffering from um, psychic traumas, and that's why she committed suicide at the very young age. And after the death of Emily Dickinson, her eldest sister found a diary from Emily's room, and in that diary there were many poems written by Emily, and Emily's sister got those poems published after the death of Emily Dickinson. So we can say that her poems were published posthumously. Okay, posthumously. 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 Posthumously means when any work of art, or you can say any uh, creation works of author or writer published after the death of that writer or poet. So we can say that is a posthumous publication, or you can say posthumous. Okay, so this poem, because I could not stop for death, this poem was published in poetry collection titled Poems Series 1 in 1890. So another important point about this poem is that first the poem was published under the title The Chariot, Rath, the Chariot. But after that, the title was changed. The third poem, the the fourth poem is Sylvia Plath's Daddy. See, again, another important poet from America. She was also suffering from um, the pains of her life, predicaments of her life, Sylvia Plath, and she also committed suicide, like Emily Dickinson. She was one of the most renowned and influential poets, novelists, and short story writers of the 20th century. Okay, we'll discuss in detail about Sylvia Plath uh, when we will discuss this poem uh, next lecture. So another important thing about this poem is that this poem was written in 1962, shortly before Sylvia Plath's death, and published posthumously. This one also published posthumously, like Emily Dickinson's poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. So this poem was published in 1965, and this poem is also a part of a poetry collection of Sylvia Plath. And the title of her poetry collection is Ariel, Ariel. This collection was published in 1965. Again, I repeat, 1965. Some critics opine that this poem should not be treated as autobiographical, while some others find autobiographical elements to some extent. Okay, so this poem, Daddy, has um, this element uh, that we find autobiographical elements in this poem. The another poem is The Emperor of Ice Cream. Okay, but you will not find any ice cream or recipe of ice cream in this poem. This is very strange thing. Wallace Stevens is again major poet of America, and also important poet, literary figure when we talk about American literature. See, this poem was published in 1923. Okay, and this is the most popular poem of Wallace Stevens. Uh, this is very short poem having two equal stanzas. Okay, and also this poem expresses the philosophy of life Here, the emperor of ice cream. Here, who is emperor? Emperor is death. You can say emperor is God himself. Okay, so this is symbolic word in this poem. And here, ice cream. The word ice cream is also symbolic because it symbolizes the uh, the you can say it symbolizes the life, the because we are not immortal. Okay, so life is short, like the life of ice cream, because when ice cream is exposed to hot weather, it melts. Okay, so just like the life of ice cream, human life is short, and the emperor of ice cream is nothing but death, or you can say God himself. The third unit deals with Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms. Ernest Hemingway is a very popular name in American literature. Full name is Ernest Miller Hemingway, and his lifespan is 1899 to 1961. Okay, so he was born in 1899 and died in 1961. Hemingway, we can say Hemingway was a novelist, short story writer, and journalist. His economical style had a strong influence on 20th century fiction, while his life of adventure and his public image influenced later generations. Okay, so he's a popular writer of American literature. Okay, something more about Hemingway, because I'm tempted to say something more about Hemingway. See, um, he was graduated from Oak Park School in 1917. Then he was not admitted uh, in university. Actually, his dream was to become soldier. You know, he wanted to become a soldier and he wanted to fight during Second World War. He tried to enlist in the army, but he was rejected because of his poor eyesight. So disappointed by his rejection, he went to his uncle's house, his uncle's house in another city to stay there and started working as a reporter. He gave up his job as a reporter when he joined the service as an ambulance driver on the Italian front. Means, you know, he was stubborn. His dream was to become soldier. So he tried hard. He kept on uh, trying to be enlisted in the army, and he became successful, but not as a soldier, but as a driver, as an ambulance driver in army. But he was satisfied. Okay, then he also took part in the war. Uh, from Italian front, means he was appointed in Italian army. Though he was, American, but he was uh, appointed as an ambulance driver in Italian army. Okay, after that um, he was yes, he was having accident during his service during the war, and his leg was injured. Then he was shifted to hospital, Then he also had to go through the operation, and after that, uh, again he continued his service. But the pain of uh, his leg led him to commit suicide. You know. Okay, in 1952, his The Old Man and the Sea was published, which became very popular and got him the Pulitzer Prize in 1953. He then received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1954. This is very important. Okay, so this is very uh, beautiful novel, A Farewell to Arms. This is a tragedy, and we can find autobiographical elements in this novel. While reading this novel, uh, while reading about the life of the protagonist, the predicaments of the protagonist, Henry, we find that this is nothing but the story of Hemingway himself. So we find certain autobiographical elements in this novel. Okay, then let's move towards the fourth unit, and this is about the acquaintances. You know, okay, in the next coming lectures, we'll discuss in detail about these works. Okay, so dear students, uh, let me finish today's lecture. See, you have again, let me repeat, you have 4 units. In the first unit, you have play Death of a Salesman, written by Arthur Miller. In the second unit, you have 5 poems from different poets, from various poets. Okay, in the third unit, you will find the novel, a short fiction of Ernest Hemingway. And in the fourth unit, you have brief introductions of the important works of American literature. So, thank you for today.